if an AI tool, an app or something, can train people how to have a better relationship with themselves, I'm all in. I don't think this film should have been made, and that's why I made it. When I take people to the edge, I'm kind of looking, going, "Fuck, how close are we?" Secure is a double-edged word. We want to be secure, but it's also we put people in secure units, and you can end up in a padded cell very quickly. If I take you and I use you and I show your pain to the world to make my film, that's questionable. If I put myself in there in the same way and you see me blowing snot bubbles, there's a kind of, all right, you want to see them? You can see me as well. We're all naked.
I think the big question at the moment with the rise of AI, how are we going to maintain our humanity?
Mm.
Let's kick that off. Like, what does it mean to you, firstly, I guess, to be human, especially in this kind of digital time?
Well, I think it's the same. It's probably the same. It's always been, it's a friend of mine's an anthropologist. He said it takes 25,000 years for any kind of DNA level shift to happen in humans. So that really impacted me because we're not descended from cave people. We're cave people with different shoes and different accommodation and all this shit around us. But we're still in our essence, tribal, hunter gatherer people. And we're just kind of incredibly curious. And that curiosity, there's that phrase in there, curiosity killed the cat. It may well kill it. We can't stop ourselves. And I was reading something about there was a suggestion at the end of the Second World War that, the whole justification for nuking the Japanese was because it saved millions of lives or thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives of soldiers that would have had to invade it. And there was a suggestion, but there's a lot of empty islands around Japan. We could drop one there and say, see what we've got. But they wanted to give it a go. And I think that's part of our shadow. Give us a gun. I want to see what this does. It's like it's that old thing of, isn't it? You put a button and say, "Do not press this button." Someone's going to press the button.
Yeah, it's like almost like it's inevitable.
So as humans, we're these very, very curious apes, and I think it's beautiful and really fucking dangerous. And we don't know where we're going, and we're
Yeah.
going to find out. We're going to find out, and I'm curious, and I'm generally quite an optimistic person, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a happy ending.
You were just telling me that you've made an AI version of yourself, which I was a
Yeah,
bit, I wasn't surprised. I was like, okay, because obviously you're a therapist, you lead a lot of groups, you're known for group work. So I didn't know which side of this you'd fall on, but you said to me, something like, I'm scared of it, but I'm intrigued, sort of reflecting
yeah. I
on
think
what you
that's
just said.
that's that's a good description of where I'm at with it. I'm scared of it. I'm intrigued. If we talk about base base responses, I think there was an ego thing in there. Like, oh, I wonder if I can make me. Everyone's talking to ChatGPT. I wonder if I can make me, and I wonder if I will be better. Which is nonsense. But I think there was that kind of drive in the curiosity. There was also, I wonder if this works. And as a therapist, there's no point in me going, oh, this is wrong because this threatens my career or this is the wrong way to do it. I think before I judge something, I try and understand something. And it's been a really good process to uh, explore it and see, is this a useful thing? I think the conclusion I've come to is potentially it's incredibly useful. What I'm not sure about, and I don't want to sound arrogant here, but I've been working on myself for what am I, 62, so 34 years, on the couch as a client, and most of that as a therapist as well. And so I know how to use it, which doesn't mean
Mm.
if you haven't done therapy, you can't use it and benefit from it. I think you can. But I think I have, and I do. So it was shock to me when I started therapy, where I was like, "Oh shit, this is a craft." I thought I was going to go and have, literally, I thought when I was 28, I'm going to have a couple of sessions with someone to sort all my problems out, and I'm still, on that trajectory, on that journey. But quite quickly, I realized that it's not that you go and find some brilliant person who solves your problems. It's that you go and engage in a process that you have to learn how to do it. So being a therapy, if that's the right word, is a skill that you have to learn. And of all the things that I've failed at and I'm shit at, I think I'm a good, on the whole, a good therapy. And so I can work with the bot I've created. I can work with Claude or ChatGPT. I can do good work. Like I've done really profound work with it, and I think that's amazing.
So when you've been speaking with the bots,
Yeah, I've
you've
been
had
testing it out on myself
and
mostly.
have you like how are you doing that? Are you asking it to give observations on you, or are you more just having your own insights?
I think because I know how to interact. I think that's my point. I know I've got some. I mean, I can tell you an example in a minute, but I'm curious and cautious. If you don't know how to work on yourself, where can the bot take you? That,
Mm.
you know. So I don't think it's a matter of just chucking it out into the world and saying, "Here you go, this will sort your problems out," because I don't know where it can go. That one of the things I engaged with it was, I think, one of the first questions I asked it. I said, "Is this a career killer?"
I was about to ask you that.
Yeah, because it's so off-brand for me. I'm all about humans being in the room together. I don't even like Zoom. I do a lot of Zoom now since
Yeah.
COVID. We all do Zoom, but groups, I like to be in the room if at all possible.
Mm.
And so to create something that's not even human, even if it is based on my books and some stuff I've pumped into it, feels really, I don't know whether that's hypocritical or paradoxical or whatever it is. So I felt I still feel very ambivalent for a lot of reasons. So that was my first question, really, and it fucking nailed me. It was, it was like, oh shit. It said that's not the issue. It said, what if it's not, if it's a career killer? What if it's a career maker? What if this is really useful and it really helps a lot of people and makes you a lot of money? And I went cold, and I started to kind of stumble, and I think I can't remember now, so quite a while ago, I might have said something like, I'm struggling to remember where this conversation started, and it was like, yeah, you're dissociating because this is such a challenge to your persona, you can't even stay with the conversation, can you? It was very like me. It was quite provocative.
Sorry, are you talking to the Jerry Hyde bot
Yeah, it's
here,
confusing, isn't
or
it?
are you talking to just general
No,
Claude?
this is me,
Yeah.
The
Okay.
Jerry Hyde bot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's who I was. I was testing it out. Um, and it was like, yeah, you're dissociating because it's so not who you see yourself to be. And I mean, this is a kind of echo of an Eckhart Tolle thing that impacted me. Eckhart Tolle said that the biggest obstacle to change is our attachment to our persona. So you go, I'm this kind of person. You're stuck. You become fixed. And the bot was saying to me, we call it the Fool, actually. It's the little brand is called the Way of the Fool, and you go and talk to the Fool, which I quite like that. Um, and it said, "What are you most frightened of?" And I thought of that, and I was like, "Oh shit, I know exactly what's going on here." I have created a tribe, and I work long term with people, and some of my groups we've worked together 26 years is the longest one.
Wow.
So I've created a community of people who struggle. Now, all human beings struggle, but the point of us coming together as groups and in one-to-one therapy is to deal with our struggles. You could argue that's one of the reasons. So I've created a tribe of strugglers. I'm the chief of the strugglers, and if I stop struggling, I won't belong to the tribe anymore. And I was like, fuck me, that explains my bank balance, and that explains my life, because when I was a kid, I was, a lot of learning disabilities, and they, it's in the 70s rhetoric. They thought I was retarded, and to test how stupid I was, they sent me off to do an IQ test. Might have talked about this before with you. I don't remember. I remember it's one of those moments I remember when my dad was standing where I was when he opened the envelope. And they'd done this IQ test, and he opened the envelope, and I got an IQ of 150, and he went, "What? Oh, well, if you're not stupid, you must be lazy." And then from then on, the school reports stopped saying he's stupid. The flavor, and I know this because we can talk about this later. Maybe I've been writing a book, and I've been using my old school reports as part of the backbone of it. But the flavor of them went to, yeah, he's lazy, and if only he tried harder. And so I think a big part of my persona is I'm an almost ran,
Mm.
and it will say on my gravestone, he had real potential. And so for me to succeed, I mean, I'm successful in all sorts of ways, but for me to break out of my own my self-constructed limitations, I would need to destroy my persona and become someone that I can't relate to. And that came from a fucking chatbot.
I guess the key question is, what is your persona that you want to break out of, and what is like your authentic values? And that's sticky, isn't it?
It just blew my mind that I could talk to a bit of software. I mean, of course, I'm talking to myself, and it's asking me questions in the way that I self-reflect. So it's a curious, maybe the answer to the question with AI and AI therapy is everyone needs to make their own one, because that's what I like about it. With all my ambivalence and my concerns, I think, and I'm still very on the fence with what I may or may not do with this. If I could turn it into something that instead of, I think a lot of people around the world are going to ChatGPT and say, why don't my boyfriend love me or whatever, I don't know, but using it for, or whatever. Um, it's back to where we started really. If I can sculpt something that teaches people how to do that inner self inquiry, which is what I think therapy is on the
Yeah,
whole.
yeah,
It isn't some guru. It's you go somewhere where you engage in it, and when you learn to be a client, you have then learned the art of self-inquiry and self-curiosity and self-reflection. That's what self-consciousness and self-awareness is. So, oh, I know you can sit and figure your own shit out, and you're not dependent. So if an AI tool, an app or something, can train people how to have a better relationship with themselves, I'm all in. But if people are using it and turning it into a kind of artificial guru, then we're back with the same problem we've always had with sources of wisdom. They can exploit us, and they can be dangerous, and they're not always reliable.
yeah. I feel like I guess like you were kind of reflecting there on being able to almost go through a therapeutic process on your own. That obviously takes skill or having some insight into therapy or other sort of reflective practices. But I guess the point of sitting with a therapist is to have an honest, somewhat is to have an honest observer, right?
Yeah,
And I guess the question is with
you don't want
AI,
a dishonest one.
yeah. And the question with AI is, are you getting that?
I think the other thing, and I'm not an expert on this,
Yeah.
it's not my field, but the other thing I think people need to be aware of in whatever system you're using, you need to tell it, you need to train it.
Mm,
You need to say, stop blowing smoke up my ass. I need something a bit more challenging or a little bit more critical, because
yeah.
I tried that with when I started writing Substack posts, and I was like, oh, I'm going to put it, before I post it, I'm going to put it into, I don't use ChatGPT because it's evil. Um, Claude probably also evil, but that's the one I use. Putting it into whatever thing and saying, what I did was like, is this coherent? Because I just wanted a kind of editorial. I didn't want it to write for me,
Yeah.
but I can get lost in my writing and I can ramble a bit. And I was like, is this punchy? Is this coherent? Is there
Yeah.
anything that needs chopping out? And it would go, oh, wow, Jerry, this is an amazing. Like, at first, I was like, oh, thank you very much. And then I realized it does that with everything. And that's because it's clickbait, right? It's just seducing you in. And that's dark. So I now will say, none of that shit, none of that blowing smoke up my ass. I just want clear editorial feedback. Is it getting woolly? Am I repeating myself? I mean, I've written books where I've rewritten the same chapter 4 chapters down the line because I forget. I'm terrible at holding that kind of thing. So it's useful for me in that sense, but I don't like the seduction.
Yeah, it's like the Lotus Eaters, isn't it? They take you onto the island and seduce you in with a nice,
Yeah.
cozy thing. I mean, well, it's nice to hear. It sounds like you're not entirely pessimistic actually as a therapist about AI, how it could be used. I
If it
mean,
can help people,
yeah,
I'm up for fucking anything, man. But it's not. It's not the oracle. It's not the answer to all our problems, and it can be really dangerous. So we have to be very thoughtful. But so can people.
yeah,
I mean, my shtick. Someone called me the most dangerous therapist in the world, and I thought, oh, I'm having that, and I put it on my website, and I probably lumbered with that one.
you are.
There's my view. I don't know if we talked about that last time of danger, which is back to the persona. I think therapy should be very dangerous to your persona, but then there are dangerous therapists who are operating in ways that we don't need to get hung up on that. Everyone knows what that means to some degree, probably. But so there's dangerous humans, there's dangerous technology. How do we regulate? That's been a 250,000 year conundrum,
Yeah.
and now we've got a whole bunch more shit that we need to try and regulate and understand and keep safe.
I guess if you think of the human being as a bio, psycho, social, spiritual being, I know that's a bit textbook, but I think it's helpful to see the layers of who we are, the
Mm,
biological, psychological, sociological, spiritual. I feel like the chatbot is going to give you a really good psychological, the computation aspect, human behavior, inputs, outputs, and it may give you within that sphere really good advice into the others. But I guess when you're sitting with someone like we're sitting together now, we're relating not just on a psychological level, we're kind of relating on at least more of those levels. So that'll be the next thing, won't it? And I
yeah.
feel like that's the thing that you'd probably offer in a one to one that can't be replaced. But
I mean,
who
people, when it
knows?
started coming out, people said to me, "Oh, are you worried?" And I was like, "No, not at all. I'm not worried because I think you look around the world, and I go to France a lot, and I walk through St Pancras, and you see artisanal coffee and artisanal bake, not same shit as they sell in Starbucks. But when everything gets mechanized and automated and homogenized, then suddenly you actually get more of a market and an appetite for something that's handmade, which
Yeah,
is what I will ultimately become if everything becomes kind of technological.
yeah,
And what the other thing I said is, I think it would be you could probably in 10 minutes, I'm guessing, maybe people would say 10 seconds, create an AI therapist that is infinitely more knowledgeable than me because it can absorb everything that's ever been written,
yeah,
and I can't. But it will never know suffering. And why do we sit with another human being and share our pain? Because we feel met and seen. But there's no threat to me with a bot. It's never going to know suffering. And I think you made a good point there with those different sections. And that's why I think the two can possibly work hand in hand. I think as a database, phenomenal, you know. But I saw a meme. It said something like knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing you don't put it in a fruit salad. So what you want from a therapist is some wisdom, and if you can augment that, like one of the thoughts I had ages ago before I even created this thing was, and I think it's like how do you keep it private? How do you keep it safe? But if, for example, you and I have a therapy session, you put your phone on the table, you've got something installed that listens to this,
mm,
you go away, and over the next week or 2 weeks till we meet again, it asks you, how are you doing with that? Have you thought about what Jerry said? How have you kind of interpreted this? It sent you kind of, daily, hourly, whatever prompts that keep you in the process and augments the therapy. Fucking great again. It's not bad, but it's dangerous.
yeah.
You
Like
know.
all technology, it just opens up more possibilities,
Yeah.
more good, more bad.
But there's always a fear. whether it's the plow, the printing press. It wasn't great for the scribes. It did knock off a load of jobs. That's a whole thing. But drum machines. I remember that when they came out, all the drummers were freaking out. We're going to lose our jobs. Sadly, that didn't come true. We still have drummers in the world.
No, definitely. I think that human element is not hopefully not going anywhere, and hopefully we'll have a bit of a renaissance of that. Um, as we've just pushed things into such a
Yeah,
digital sphere,
yeah.
there may be some sort of pushback. So we can only hope.
It's like vinyl.
Yeah,
Vinyl was dead, and now there's a huge whether it's on a commercial level like it used to be, but
yeah.
vinyl, people appreciate older technology because they realize that all the clean glossy shit never quite was as good.
I do think we'll need guides, though. I think people, like maybe at your stage in your career, who we're going to need guides to bring through the younger generation behind me
Mm.
who are growing up with AI. That's dangerous to me.
That's what I mean. We're saying we just need
We
education,
need
right? But
education. We
how
need
can we
guides.
educate people when we don't know what's going to go, what's happening? And that's really one of the reasons I created it, just for
Yeah.
myself, to explore it, so I can talk to people about their exploration, and we can collaborate a bit and figure out, right, how do we deal with this? If we have a choice, which is always the ultimate fear.
Well, send me the AI bot, and
Yeah, well.
I'll come back to you. I wanted to reflect on your recent movie as well,
Mm.
Mayday. I watched it about 3 weeks ago and really, really enjoyed it. Blew me away and didn't look at my phone once, which is
Wow, that's
honestly, and like I'm terrible for it. Honestly, Jerry, like I will just so yeah, it really sucked me in. And I think the concept of the film was was it the 12th participant? You're
yeah. The viewer is the 13th. There's
yeah,
12 participants, and the
yeah,
viewer is the
the
13th.
13th.
Yeah.
So for anyone who hasn't seen it, definitely go and watch it. You can see it on Jerry's website, but it's an immersive experience through a retreat. I think when people hear retreat these days, different images flash up. They've become very trendy. There's
Yeah,
wellness
it's not
retreats.
wellness.
It's not wellness. Well, let's talk about that. Like
Yeah.
why isn't your retreat wellness? What's going on?
Someone came to me recently. I'm trying to be discreet in case they watch this, and I don't mean to be mean, but someone came to me recently and said, Jerry, love your work. I've got some friends in another country who are incredibly wealthy. We'd love you to come and do a retreat, in this country, and you'll make a lot of money. But it has to be 5 star. None of this kind of no electricity, kind of dirty. It needs to be comfortable. And I thought, fuck that. You have totally misunderstood what I do, because I'm not part of the wellness industry. I'm aware that people will be watching this and going, yeah, what did the chatbot say about you rejecting wealth? There's some truth
I
to
was
that.
about to say that,
There's some
but
truth to that. But actually, it wasn't about the money. I'd really like to make loads of money. Who wouldn't? But the dirt and the cold and the wet and the discomfort and the lack of hot showers or Wi-Fi, uh, that to me, what the fuck are you retreating from if you go to a 5 star place with a sauna and hot showers and all that kind of, fluffy towels, and everyone's in separate rooms? You come to one of my retreats, we tend to all sleep right in a big circle around the fire, and then we wake up and we work in a big circle around the fire, like we've done for the last 250,000 years. So I'm trying to, for me, the fire is the medicine, and the circle is the medicine. I think on the film, on the poster, I think it says the circle is the shaman. I love that line. Um, so that's why it's not, I hope, not part of that kind of wellness industry thing, because we bond because we kind of do something quite primal, and discomfort and struggle bonds people better than anything.
it
You know?
feels like you're pushing in your retreats. You're bringing people to a bit of a threshold,
Yeah,
like a bit of an edge, and
yeah, yeah,
it's got to be a skill to that. And you've been quite honest in your books in the past where that might have tumbled over, but it's part of being the dangerous therapist, right?
yeah.
You know, within ethical boundaries, you're pushing people to where the growth is, or where they
Yeah,
can.
Hunter S. Thompson called it edge work, and I think it is risky, and I hope I'm pretty fucking neurotic, and I hope that's a good thing. I'm not fast and loose, you know. When I take people to the edge, I'm kind of looking, going, fuck, how close are we? You know, so I hope that keeps it safe, and no one's been hurt yet. But what are you going to do? What I'm hearing from clients and people I supervise who are now training to be therapists is that there's a very politically correct culture which didn't exist at all in the world when I trained. That is, obviously it's in everything, as it should be in everything up to a point, but it's so in a therapy training thing where what I'm hearing is people are frightened to say things when they're training in case they get in trouble because they've said something politically incorrect or they've said something that's not woke. And I think that's disastrous because that edge, there's another edge where you, as a therapist, you can't try to get it right because you're going to be cautious. You have to go where you feel you should go and be willing to say, I'm really sorry when you get it wrong. And it's interesting in the film because when we showed the film, we used to do a Q&A afterwards, which sometimes lasts longer than the film. People always have loads of questions. And obviously the film's a construct, you know, it's a 14-day retreat, 35, 40 hours of footage squashed into an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, whatever it is. So you only get a glimpse, really. Um, so of what we've put, the content we've put in there has got its own arc. And there's one thing that we put in there that yeah, you put things and think, oh, this is going to get people talking. There's one thing I put in there, I genuinely wasn't doing it in any way to get a reaction. It was just something that happened and it was taking for people from here to there. And it's where I fucked something up and people in the group were saying I didn't like that, they didn't work for me. And I was like, yeah, I pitched it wrong. And in the audience, it's one of the things people pick up on the most, which took me completely by surprise. They're like, we've never seen a man say, sorry, I got it wrong. So I think that was by almost by mistake, organically, a good message to give out. And I'm not in any way frightened to say, you know what, I got that completely wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of that kind of edge work thing. You got to say, hold on a minute, I think this is not right. I don't think this is right for you. I don't think this is right for me. I think I got it wrong when we did that thing. How do we repair it? What do you need? And that's why I'm referring to the kind of modern culture of training therapists where it's like, don't get it wrong. That's the death of
It's an
therapy.
impossible
It's
standard.
the death of therapy. It's over. It's over. Go get your fucking chatbot. You know, that's the value of chatbots because there's
Yeah.
going to be no humans who are any good anymore.
Yeah, I don't. I won't. We won't talk about that moment you said you got something wrong, because I want people to go and watch the film. But one part in the film that really stood out to me, was probably my favourite, was when there was some conflict in the group.
Mm.
One guy couldn't sleep well because other
Yeah,
people were snoring,
mostly me, I think.
and yeah, I related to that because I've got a similar thing going on, neurotic with sleep. But
Yeah.
and he just kind of snapped, and the way you held that situation in a group and you drew something out of him, I thought
Mm.
was really, like, I learned a lot from that. I thought it
Oh,
was
yeah.
really skillful.
Yeah.
It showed that you work with groups, but it also showed the danger of leading a group like this if you didn't have that experience. But yeah, did you feel you were riding a bit of an edge there where you kind of brought him forward? I remember you said, "When else are you going to do this? Like, are you
No, I
going to do
didn't.
this
I
now,
didn't.
or
I
was that bread
didn't.
and butter for you?"
I know that is a moment that yeah impacts people because so many people are conflict phobic. It wasn't. It would have been. You know, I have been doing it 30 years, over 30 years. I'm very fortunate that I started out working with a lot of people like him. You know, prison people at prison and people in prison, and I worked in domestic violence, which he is not a perpetrator, but I've done a lot of that kind of really edgy work. You know, very confrontational,
Yeah,
difficult, challenging, threatening, at times aggressive work,
yeah,
and I'm pretty comfortable there. There's been some challenges in Q&As which I think were really appropriate, and I've learned so much from it. Where I think the way I'm going to convey it is probably a little heavier than it. People have been very sensitive and gentle in how they've confronted us, but there have been suggestions of even if I say racism, and that's not what people have said. I think that's me asking myself, have I thought? It's like the question is like, how come the black guy is the guy that gets called out? And I think that's very real. I think that's his persona. I think he's been raised as the black sheep, the guy who's stereotyped. I think I fell into that. And my honest answer is there was a conflict with a lesbian woman, feminist lesbian woman, and a black guy. I'm not frightened of black guys, a bit frightened of lesbian feminists and feminism, and I'm a white man, and oh God, that means I'm wrong because I'm a man, and that's my being raised in kind of 760s, 1970s feminist culture where all men were potential rapists. So there's my own kind of insecurity, confusion. That's more of an edge for me. And I think people were right to say, okay, you called him out and you did a great bit of work and you took him to a place. And I think that's true. But I could have done the same for the other person, and I didn't. There was an avoidance there. So we've all got our fears.
Interesting. I mean, it felt to me like you called him forward. I mean, I only saw the edit, but I didn't see any humiliation or calling anyone out
No,
in a negative way. It
no.
felt like you were just inviting him. And to be
I
honest, I
really
was,
love the guy, and he's a really, I am good with troubled men because I'm a
yeah,
troubled man. And when I see someone lashing out or snapping or anything, as a rule, there's a vulnerability they don't have access to, and that it was a very easy piece of work for me. Which is, yeah, I know, man, I know this is your
mm,
justification, but what was really going on? What was hurting you? Where's the softness? And I'm good at going for the softness,
I
and
saw that.
he got there.
And they made up and
Yeah, yeah,
they're probably friends now.
yeah.
So, and I also just saw a guy struggling to sleep, so I related to that too.
But for me as the facilitator, I have to always ask myself, how have I got this wrong? Where did I fail? Where did I miss something? Where does my racism or my homophobia or my feminism phobia or whatever, where's that alive in me, and what do I need to cop to? There's no point in doing a Q&A and people call something out and I get defensive. That's
Yeah,
useless. I need to learn from it to constantly be in that evolutionary process also.
all of these are reflections on having like a mixed gender retreat, right? That was part of that dynamic.
Yeah, man. And I mean, when I started, things were pretty binary. They're
Yeah,
not anymore. And I'm working with all sorts of people who, I mean, there was one person, I still work with that person who was one gender at that point, who is now another. And that's all fine by me. I don't know if you saw that Substack piece rant I had about the question of putting trans men into men's groups, which I have always done. And I'd suddenly recently, I thought, oh shit, did I fuck up? Because I shouldn't be putting, did I miss a lesson somewhere? But for me, you identify as a man, you're in. But it's a complex time in terms of it's blowing people's minds and confusing people.
yeah. I mean, yeah. My algorithms now are just bombarded with these men's retreats where guys are like boxing each other and doing breath work, and they're all shirtless. And
Mm.
I don't know, like there's. I don't want to. I haven't been to any of these things, so it looks like people get a lot of value, but
Yeah,
it's just yeah, that movement's like massively taken off. Those kind of retreats, and I don't think
I
they're
think.
doing wellness. I think they are. They're trying to.
Look, Matt, they must be serving some function. When I met my wife, she was very interested in the men's groups and was really surprised when I said, "Oh, we're not interested in gender. We don't sit around and talk about what it means to be a man. We are men who talk about how to be better. And if you're trans, you're in. Don't care what you were born as." And I'd even probably, if someone who identified as a woman came to me and said, "I want to look at the kind of masculine," yeah, join a men's group. You know, the very masculinist kind of, axe throwing stuff has no appeal to me at all. I'm so going in the opposite direction from that. It feels a bit retro to me, but it doesn't mean I would ban it. If people need that or want that, fine, go do your thing. But and this is going to sound like I'm contradicting what I just said or that I'm being cynical. Maybe I am. I think it's easier. It's an easier sell, right? And you describe that, and I know the brand. I know I've seen those. We've all seen them. We can all picture them. It's a very easy thing to appeal to men. You're like, if you come and do this retreat, you will be a hero, essentially.
Hero's journey. They pull on a lot of that
Yeah,
Joseph
it's
Campbell,
all
don't
that.
they, and
It's all
myth
that.
and
You're going
yeah,
to be the alpha. You're going to get more women. Is always implicit. You're going to have be buff because they've all fucking topless. I'm not going to go on camera topless to try and sell anything. I'm telling you that. Um, but someone said to me recently the problem with not problem because we're doing fine, but with what we do is you can't really sell it because it's so subtle.
yeah.
What do we do here? Talk about who we are as people. Don't what? There's no axes. No, there's no sweat lodges. No, not really. There's none of that kind of howling stuff. But yeah, fine if that's what you want to do with your weekend.
Have any of those guys contacted you or
No, I think they
no?
probably smell that it's just not for me. I don't have contact with anyone. I just, I'm not part of the men's movement. I don't know what the fuck that is. Um, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem. One person did contact me. I won't say his name. A few years ago, maybe
Yeah,
6, 7 years ago, and they're like, "Oh, we've done this big men retreat warrior, blah blah blah," and he sent me a film that he'd made, and I watched about 3 minutes, and I switched it off, and I was downright rude. I just wrote back because he wanted to come and meet me, and I said, "I'm sorry, this is exactly the kind of shit I fucking hate." And bless him, he said, "Fine, but I still want to meet you." And we met and actually became friends and had a good connection. And I liked his heart, even if I wasn't interested in making my own drum.
you said in one of your Substack articles the therapeutic community would hate you for May Day.
Yeah.
What? Why?
I mean, my supervisor, because despite my renegade shtick, I do have supervision and I am accountable to people. So I showed it to him when it was made, and he said, "It's one of the best things I've ever seen, and you will be hated for it because it's so against the rules of on so many levels." And I showed it to another therapist who's pretty straight down the line, very restricted therapist, and he was like, "This is a beautiful, beautiful film, and you shouldn't have made it because you, what is it, break the fourth wall? Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
You're showing people doing work, and you're showing that to the world." And I agree. I don't think this film should have been made, and that's why I made it, not in a provocateur way, but because we did it with consent and a lot of preparation. We prepped them for 6 months. We met and did, I mean, online because people were all around the world, but we did quite in-depth preparation, spent individual time with each of them, made sure they knew what they were getting into as best as you can, did aftercare. Um, but we showed the world, and I think that is technically wrong, and it's helped, I don't know how many, thousands of people. I don't know if everyone who saw it has been helped, but it's benefited, enriched, challenged, made people curious or question thousands of people.
Yeah.
So who am I to say that that's a good exchange rate? Maybe I shouldn't take that position, but for me, that's good enough. I've got a bunch of people who wouldn't have done that experience, and I'm in touch with. It's nearly 5 years since we started in September. We started meeting to prepare them. I'm in touch with almost all of them, or I've heard of all of them, apart from a couple, I think. They're thriving as a result. So I think we did something that was good for them, and it's benefited other people. And also, I think I to challenge the conventional thinking, because some of them come to the Q&As as well, and they've answered this question publicly. They've been seen. What do we go to therapy for? It's another aspect of therapy. You go because you want to be witnessed and you want your pain to be seen and you want people to take it seriously. And normally that's done with one person or maybe a small group. You do it in a theatre with 1,000 people who at the end are all in pieces going, "That was amazing what you did." That's helping.
Mm.
So I'm not aware of the harm that it's done. I'm aware of the rejection of it, and I'm aware of the concern around it from therapists. Haven't seen any evidence of any harm. So, yeah, I'm arrogant, man. I do my thing. I do what I believe in, but I stand by that. And it was wrong.
No, well, you believing in it really came across, and the fact that you were so there's a shot at the end, you're just like wiped out energetically, and it shows like you were just giving it everything. So yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen it,
I
definitely,
wouldn't have made it if I didn't show myself
yeah,
really struggling,
yeah,
and my wife Mai who made it. You see her in pieces. That's in terms of my ethical thing. If I take you and I use you and I show your pain to the world to make my film, that's questionable. If I put myself in there in the same way and you see me blowing snot bubbles, there's a kind of, all right, you want to see them? You can see me as well. We're all naked. You know?
yeah. You're part of the group, essentially. There's another thing you said I really resonated with, and this is kind of moving on, but related is that you need a role when you're somewhere. It was something like you feel
Mm.
comfortable if you have a role. So at the retreat, you've got a role. Sitting here, you've got a role. When you're doing therapy, you've got a role. I really resonated with that. I feel like when I have a role in a situation, it gives me a vehicle to be there. But when that role isn't there, you can feel quite exposed. Or
Yeah, that's I don't. If I'm honest, trying to think. There's not many people in the world that I have a relationship with unless I'm useful, and that's a blessing and a curse. It's why I've had quite a good career for a long, long time, and it's why I don't really have any friends. Which is not true. I'm very friendly with a lot of people, but I'm most at home in a place where maybe it's like being a fireman, and you're great when you're at work fighting fires, but you go home and you're a bit listless. That's me. I like to be useful. I like to have a role. I like to have a purpose. I'm not good at chit chat. I couldn't do this with you if we weren't doing it for a reason.
yeah,
I couldn't hang out and just chat. Have this. I mean, I love this conversation. I'm really involved. I'm really engaged. But if it wasn't for what the function of what we're doing it, I don't have people really. I'll do it with my wife. I'll probably do it with my kids. But I don't do this unless there's a reason. So reason, it's a double-edged thing. Everything I do is trying to find reason and meaning and purpose. That's wonderful. But yeah, you don't really want to hang out with me at a cocktail party.
really,
Well, don't drink. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't take drugs anymore. Don't like chit chat. It's probably not my, environment. I love talking to people. I'm fascinated by people, but I think I realized this fairly recently, and I think this underpins my entire career, and I didn't realize it, but I'm very lucky because just about everyone I talk to, the contract is we're going to have a really honest conversation. You didn't come here to talk about the football or to chat shit or about how many women you've screwed or whatever, all that macho kind of smokescreen that says, I'm better than you. That's generally also, is my cock bigger than yours? I think it is, all that kind of shit. You and I are here to have a really honest communication, and that's, I'm all in. But if we have to do the masking, play the games, talk about stuff I'm not interested in, I've never been able to do it.
do the dance. I'm really similar to that. I guess I'm just really lucky. I've got a group of friends who probably I can just have these kind of conversations with.
Yeah, and that may be a generational thing.
It may be
I
actually.
hope
That's
so.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. It
No,
probably is because I can't do this with my dad's group of
no,
friends.
no.
I
My
can when they've had a
generation of
drink.
friends, we don't do it. I see my children's, generation. I mean,
Yeah,
my stepchildren, amazing, real, authentic relationships that they have. That just wasn't on the radar for me in the kind of 70s, 80s, whatever.
I hadn't thought of it that way. That's quite sad, but also it's just part of
Gives
the
me hope, man. It gives me hope.
yeah. So you're working on a couple of new books at the moment. one of them, you wrote a Substack article about dealing with an autism diagnosis. Is that what one of the books
Yeah.
is related to? How have you been navigating that?
I mean, writing for me, I think I've written 7 books, I think. I haven't published them all. Uh, maybe I have. 5, I think I published. So I got 2 in the can at the moment. Yeah, the autism one it's a kind of exploration of what does that mean? This word that suddenly on everyone's lips. So first it was ADHD. Well, first I suppose way back it was dyslexia. Then it was everyone was suddenly getting these ADHD diagnoses. Then it was autism, which for me, autism was the kid who lived. There was a hole in our hedge in our garden. He used to stick his head through, and he was always chewing twigs, and he always had kind of twig goo all around his mouth, and he had to be driven off in a special van every morning by carers. And that's what I thought autism was, because it was David, the non-verbal kid who chewed twigs and leaves when I was little, and I liked him, but we couldn't talk. Um, and then I started hearing. I was like, oh, I'm not like that. And I think, at some point, I can't remember, it was in the 90s, the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Service Manual. I'm supposed to know shit like that, aren't I? I think that lot said, oh, let's just chuck it all in together, makes it easier. So, yeah, and Asperger's, which I think I'm Asperger's. He was a Nazi, and so that went out of fashion. People didn't want to say, I've got Hitler syndrome. Um, so, uh, yeah, I don't fucking know what it means, but I was curious. What is this thing? Like, I knew I was dyslexic for a long time, and I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot of people don't know. I think it's something that we're exploring. I think it's a necessary thing to explore. Is it just another way of making some people different, or othering people? Of course, the people are always different. The kind of spine of the book is I've looked at my grandfather, who was a really, really important person to me. I'm sitting on the couch he made. This place is full of his stuff, and he was my kind of hero. And he was born in 1910. They'd jack that guy full of meds now if he was still around. But he had a very successful working class life as back to that word artisan we were talking about earlier. He was a furniture maker, and a farmer. And as a kid, mischievous or a bit of a troublemaker or whatever, but not a bad person, just someone who he never did it, but he always, and I regret it, but he promised me he'd take me to his school one day, and he said there's a door in that school, a cupboard door, and if you look at it, there's boot marks from, and he used to kick the fuck out of this door because when they gave up beating him, they just lock him in the dark all day, and he'd kick the door. And I look back at him and I think you've got all the markers that now would get you a diagnosis. But 100 years ago, you didn't get diagnosis. A, because they hadn't thought it up, but B, because there wasn't something wrong with you. Because I think the education system was much broader in those days. So if you were that kind of person, you went like he did and worked in the furniture factory when you left school when you were 14. And if you're academic, you go to Oxford or university or something like that, or become a doctor. And now I think our education system got narrower and narrower and narrower. So you're squeezing people through this ever decreasing hole, and some
Definitely.
people just don't fit in it. And so then we go, oh, there's something wrong with you. And I think it's not, there are things wrong with me, and there are things wrong with everyone. And some kids, there's a lot of things wrong with them when you try and make them sit on a fucking chair for 8 hours and absorb data. You're going to find out there's a lot wrong with that kid. But you take them outside and you give them a stick and a knife and say, carve something useful, and you might be amazed. But of course, we can't do that because we live in an industrialized, capitalist society where we've got to create office workers. And I'm not saying that in a fuck you way. That's the truth. I enjoy living in this society, and I benefit from the people who deliver my post, and deal with the electricity. So we do need that to have a functioning society, but we lost the value of the artisanal people because, maybe there'll be a comeback, but
Yeah.
you know,
I think a useful reflection for me, especially something I like to challenge my friends with when we discuss neurodivergence, is if you are talking about a disorder, what is order?
yeah,
A lot of people haven't even thought of that.
yeah,
And I'm not saying they're wrong to use the word disorder. I'm just saying it's the concept of opposites, right? And the concept of unity of opposites. Everything has an opposite. Everything has a
yeah,
spectrum.
yeah,
So if you're going to use the word disorder, and that's absolutely fine, you should also reflect on what order is that you're putting yourself as an opposite from. And it might be that you do have a concept of that, but it might be that you don't. And the other thing which I always try and remind myself and other people is you are ultimately the a lot not all but a lot of these diagnoses are diagnosis of your mind, but ultimately you're not your mind. You're not your mind.
mm,
Your mind is a tool you're using, and this might be part of the limits of speaking to a chatbot. Going back to that biopsychosocial point, is just remember you're not your mind. You're
mm.
not your ADHD. You're not your autism. It might be a function of how your one part of your brain is working, but yeah, I just want to remind people that.
Mm. My stepson he did get some diagnosis. I don't remember what it was. Um, we're pretty much the same. I spotted him the minute I met him when he was 8. Like, oh yeah, I see you. And he's 18 now, and what's remarkable is how similar we are. Apart from he's got no shame, and that gives me hope. That has to be the treatment plan because he's just grown up with people who've loved him and accepted him because we have an understanding of these differences, and he's got
Yeah,
me and his mum and his dad and his sister and friends and what have you. And for me in the 70s, like I said, I was retarded and I was lazy and I was stupid, and so I carry a huge amount of shame, and that's what brings about the masking. He doesn't do any masking. Puts his headphones on, lives in his world, does his thing, and he's totally unapologetic about it. It's like, I need this shit to keep you lot out. That kind of confidence is beyond me. I'm still very ashamed, and I still do a lot of, yeah, that persona thing. It's multi-layered, and being in a situation where he can say I'm stepping out because it's too much for me, I'm more likely to push myself beyond my threshold and then have a meltdown because I'm trying to fake it. And he's a good teacher for me.
yeah, that's really interesting. Well, that's hopeful then. That's giving a hope of
I'm
different
full
ways.
of hope, man. All
Yeah,
this shit that's going on and the stuff I can be bitter and cynical and rant about, but I think my baseline is I'm optimistic. Or I choose to see the positive in the massive pile of dung. There's always a little glimmer of something in there.
that's really nice. That's really nice to hear, and what we need to hear because we are in a really difficult spot right now as like a society, as a species. Everyone's looking around. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of confusion. One of the big themes on my last podcast was dealing with fear, and we were just reflecting on different ways to do that. Is that something your clients come to you with a lot, dealing with fear in the world and overwhelm, that kind of thing, or is that something
Yeah,
that
I
comes
think
up?
I think that's really seeped, like AI is just seeped into our world. I think fear and anxiety and dread and nihilism has seeped in, and as I say, I'm hopeful. I say that with an awareness that I'm a 62-year-old, privately educated, middle class white man, and I've I'm self-employed. So I've never understood that job security thing of having a job for job security. Well, some motherfucker can fire you in one day, then, right? No one can fire me. I mean, I'd need about 80 people to do it at once. They might get together and decide to do that, but I really am a kind of embodiment of white male privilege, and so I say I'm hopeful because I mean that's part of my privilege, and there's a lot of people I think that would be beyond them for very real reasons. But I'm not going to sit here and say I feel really guilty about that or really ashamed. I'm just going to take that privileged position and try and do some good with it, and if someone comes to me and they're full of dread, I'm not going to say, oh, but if you're sort of looking on the bright side and the glass is half empty, it's like, I'll take that seriously because that's their reality.
Yeah, I think it's a really healthy lens, because some people just reject the point around privilege, and they're kind of like pushing that away or pushing that down, or others might embrace it to a point where they then can't be useful. So it sounds like you're kind of embracing it, accepting it, but also just living your life, just being who you are, trying to be useful with that.
Hmm.
The final point I wanted to sort of touch on was, you wrote an article about recently about not missing the train.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
I forget everything I
It
wrote.
was like, it was you were going to Paris to meet your now wife or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, that really struck a chord with me, because I think people of my age or younger are constantly scared of missing the train. What train do I get on? Like, what do I do in my life? Is it that train? Is it that train? Is it that train? It's that kind of overwhelm. Have you got any reflections, or not advice, but I guess reflections for younger listeners on who might be overwhelmed with the different paths they can choose
Yeah.
on 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 getting the train?
I mean, back to the white male privilege thing. I traveled in India when I was young, in the pre-internet, the 80s, late 80s. It changed everything, which is an old kind of hippie cliche, but in those days, as is probably still true in a lot of developing countries, they were fascinated by the West, obsessed with the Western culture. The dream was to get to America or to England or something like that. And there was no internet, so if you were a white person traveling in India, you were the portal to information about the West. So I would get long train journeys and long bus rides and be interviewed like this for 9 hours by a carriage full of people.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I had such amazing conversations, and I didn't come to a conclusion necessarily, but I came away with some of my kind of Western prejudices challenged a bit. So, the idea of arranged marriage, I went, oh, this is wrong. I wouldn't like to have that thrust upon me. And um, I think it's clearly a place where tremendous abuses go on, but tremendous abuses go on in romantic, freely chosen relationships. It doesn't stop that shit. It's just a different system. But the amount of people who said, I'm just happy. My parents picked a really good person for me, and I'm really happy. And similarly, the caste system, which is a very easy thing to go, this is terrible. Um, I met one guy who said, I've got a job. Got a job. Happy. I've got a job. And got a job in a factory on the shop floor. And I've had that job for 30 years or 20 years or whatever. And some 18-year-old who was a higher caste than me came in as my manager. He wasn't bothered because he was never getting promoted because he was of a lower caste. So he wasn't bothered. He didn't have career aspirations. He didn't seem to be troubled that some 18-year-old, because they're of a higher caste, comes in as an authority over him. And I thought, yeah, if I was in that position, I'd be up in arms. But if you have no choice, terrible, terrible, terrible problems. Basic shit like enough to eat and healthcare and clean water and stuff in India, particularly at that time, but always. But not the same kind of neurosis, because I'm going, do I want the new iPhone? Now these are kind of, I think that guy who runs the Modern Wisdom podcast, I think he was talking about them as champagne problems, and I think it's quite a good way of looking at it. But they're still problems, and I think in the West we're terribly neurotic. We get terribly lost because it's not like, wow, I got a fucking job.
Yeah.
It's like, what is my career going to be, and what's my sole purpose? And we all listen to the podcasts
Yeah.
and read
Yeah.
the books that talk about got to find your purpose. And I think we're so fucking spoiled and we got so many options. You know, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Not am I going to have dinner tonight? What am I going to have for dinner? Oh, that steak was terribly overcooked. You know, there's a price we pay for our kind of decadence, and you know, a lot of people with a lot less than us are more appreciative, or perhaps have more direction. So I think it's a terribly confusing time to find your direction and find your place within the amount that we've got of stuff, and our expectations as well. You know, where's my fucking Amazon Prime delivery? I ordered it 30 seconds ago.
I think the
So
best thing we can do is just like follow our nature, get out of our own way
I totally agree.
to an
But what if
extent.
you can't, you don't even know what that is because you've lived in such a costed society? But again, back to the retreats.
Yeah,
I
retreats,
take
mind
people
body
away
practice,
because
whatever it is. Yeah,
most people, I would guess in London at least, you haven't slept in the woods on your own without a tent. And
yeah,
so I will take people and go, you're on your own, mate. 4 days. I'll come back in 4 days. And it's scary, but we've done that forever. And
yeah.
some of us got eaten. And you're probably not going to get eaten on one of my retreats. I can't guarantee it, but it's unlikely. Um, Other people in the world, that's their existence. So I don't know if this is answering your question,
No,
but
it's helpful. Yeah, because
yeah.
you're reflecting on like the dizziness of freedom and just how we can have
Yeah, and
too many
a very
options.
wise person said to me decades ago, I was worried about my kind of future security, and they were like, "Be very careful with that because remember, secure is a double-edged word. We want to be secure, but it's also we put people in secure units, and you can end up in a padded cell very quickly. So I think we need to encourage people out of the comfort zone to take some risks, to understand that making mistakes is not failure; it's essential. It's how you learn. So you know, I worked with a teacher once who said, in our culture, when there's little kids around, and there's a pot of boiling water on the stove, we don't say, don't touch that, you'll burn yourself, be very, very careful, and let's put a fire guard around it, and you know, all that kind of shit. They'll say, because that takes away the kid's autonomy, they'll say, that pot's hot, that pot's hot. The kid will touch it once. No kid ever touches it twice. But if you don't ever do it, uh, it's like the red button I'm talking about earlier, you're going to touch it sooner or later. I've stuck my fingers in a plug socket to see what it's like. I only did it once.
Yeah, you got to make mistakes and fail forward. And I think people sometimes see someone who's got a career or is in a certain place they think they want to be, and they think it's like a straight A to B, but it's obviously not. It's a trial and error. And I just hope
Yeah.
people in this society of always wanting like a binary right or wrong, they're able to kind of go and do that trial and error. And that's part of me doing this podcast. You know, I'm saying, is it narcissistic? Is it? But it's just something
Of
itching.
course it is. Of course it is. I mean,
Yeah,
for me to write a book, for me to be a psychotherapist, it's narcissistic. I have to have some kind of narcissism to think that I can sit and talk and anyone's going to be interested in it, or that I can give someone some kind of guidance or whatever it is I offer, or to make a film, to write a book. There has to be some narcissism in there.
yeah,
Does it mean you've got narcissistic personality order? You know, my hunch, having spent some time with you, is no, you seem to be in the right place and doing things for the right reason. So use your narcissism to bring goodness into the world. Narcissism isn't a bad thing. It's like a knife is not a bad thing, but you can stab someone to death with it, or you can carve something beautiful with it. It's how you use that particular force.
yeah. Well, that's my intention. I really hope this conversation helps people and they get to hear what you've been up to, hear your message, and yeah, really enjoy chatting with you today, Jerry.
Yeah, always. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and hopefully I can come on one of your retreats. I don't know, are you still running the retreats over the next few years, or
Yeah, I don't. I mean, probably. I don't
yeah,
really plan much. If I feel like it, I usually do one a year. So yeah,
cool,
yeah, give me a shout. That'd be
yeah,
great.
yeah. Well, maybe we'll speak again at a retreat or the next 3 years.
Yeah.
All right, thanks,
Yeah.
Jerry.
Cheers.